Hello everybody, welcome back to Planet X News. This is Scott from the Nibiru channel. It is June 14th, 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, our physicist talks about a lot of substellar objects in our inner solar system. And I understand that for some of you, it is almost impossible to believe that this can occur. Well, we've uncovered so much evidence over the course of the last several months. And today is going to be another one of those days where we discover things that are truly unbelievable. What you're looking at here are images from the 10th of June. And this was captured on the Stereo A H12 imaging satellite. I'm going to explain this to you, and then I'm going to show you some still shots from another camera system. What you're looking at right here, and I know it doesn't look like much, but you're looking at the planet Earth. You'll see this long line running through the planet Earth. They refer to it as a Birkeland current line. Okay? The reason why you see all of this distortion throughout this imaging is because it's just the way that this SREM, S-R-E-M, it's just the way that this camera system works. I'll have the doctor explain all of this to you. She knows exactly how this camera system works. And we're going to have a live stream later on this morning, and we're going to be previewing more of these photographs. But for right now, what I want to show you is this object right here. It's a round object. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you just take a look at the image, take a look at all of the image, where do you see any other round object besides little tiny pinpoints of light that you can barely see, which are probably stars? But this object right here comes into view right during a coronal mass ejection coming directly from the sun. And that sun is over here, way over here to the left. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move this back, and I'm going to play it for you. Okay, this is the Earth. The sun is way over here to the left. This beacon here is part of the craft. So don't even worry about this object here. I just want you to concentrate on this area, and you will see what will appear as the time lapse goes from June 8th through the end of the video, which should, I think, take it out to about June 11th, June 10th, somewhere around there. But let's watch very carefully. There we go. This is the second frame of this object appearing. Now, you can clearly see the object just does not even fit in the background. It's abnormal compared to the rest of the background. And that's how we're able to identify a planetary object or a spherical object in this type of imaging. Same applies for the Earth or any other planet that appears in the SREM images. They will have a Birkeland current line going right through them, and it identifies them as a planet. And you'll see the planet, it will be white on one side and dark on the other side, the daylight and the nighttime side of the Earth facing the sun. Let's take a look and watch the footage a little bit more. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know it looks kind of obscured now, but you just watched 3 days go by where this object stayed closely in position, right where it's at. Now, I'm going to move it back just a little bit. Now you can see the other background is changing. This was a coronal mass ejection, a lot of solar energy, all of these white particles that you see here coming directly from the sun. But that's not what we want to pay attention to. We want to pay attention to this large object right here. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, You don't see any other type of spherical objects in the imaging. Once again, this is how we can tell there is a spherical object staring you right in the face, and it's not the only one. Now I'm going to go ahead and play this a little bit more. Just going to back it up because I noticed another one right here. Now I can't zoom in on the actual video, but I have still shots of this. Here's the other object right there. Now you can see a lot of other little objects. These are probably stars. It's all passing in the background in this imaging. But this object is encompassed by what looks like a black cloud or black space. And I don't mean outer space, but you can clearly see that's a small spherical object in this imaging. But in actuality, it's not that small. It's quite large. It's just off in the distance. Let's just move this a little further. Now, the reason why you see this interference is due to the coronal mass ejection from the sun. It creates a disturbance with the camera. Now you see this object. And this object is illuminated by the coronal mass ejection from the sun. This object here is not emitting light, nor is it reflecting light like the Earth on the daytime side right here. You can clearly see that is a perfectly spherical object. This object does not fit in this background. So I hope you understand what I'm talking about. But you can clearly see the object is there, and it is very large. Very large. In comparison to Jupiter, this object may be approximately 7 to 10 times the size of Jupiter. Now, we're going to go ahead and move over to the actual photographs and the still photographs that I've taken, and also taken from a different camera. These are all the same date. Now this is zoomed in. You can clearly see the spherical shape, and it seems to be encompassed by, it's possible, a gas cloud of some kind. But you can see the spherical shape. It's almost absolutely perfect. It's about as perfect as I can get it with this type of software, which I have. And it's software that simply came with my computer. Nothing fancy at all, besides putting a ring, which is a magnifying ring, to bring out the image and placing a purple arrow to point it out to you. Let's take a look at the next image. Now, same thing. This is one frame advanced forward. Once again, you can see the object. Now, it almost looks like there are two other objects, spherical objects, right here. But again, it's very hard to say if those are other objects or part of the cloud system. It's very hard to say, but you can actually see a perfectly round object, perfectly spherical. And again, nothing in this image compares to what you're seeing here. This would not be a camera anomaly, and definitely not any type of a lens flaring with this camera. Let's move on to the next photograph. This is pretty similar, the same thing. Now, I mentioned those two other spherical objects here and here. In this image, which is one frame advanced forward, these images actually appear to get darker. Nothing has been done to these images. No contrast, no color, no nothing. You're looking at raw images right here, other than being blown up or zoomed in. That's it. Now, the further you zoom in, it kind of distorts everything. But you can clearly see it's a spherical object right here. Now, we're going to move on to the next photograph. Once again, one frame advanced. You can start to see there is something going on this object. This may possibly be a brown dwarf star, ladies and gentlemen. That would be my first thought, because it's not emitting light. It's not even reflecting light, but the object is there, and it's large, and it seems to have sort of a gas cloud around it, because we can see this area here is changing in color frame by frame. Let's take a look at the next photograph. The same applies here. You can see the spherical shape, but now you can see more of a gaseous nature around the object. This may be an interaction to the waves from the CME from the sun coming in, interacting with this object. Zoom in again. You can see the clear white impacting this object. Here's another. These are coming directly from the sun. These are like waves of energy moving past this object. This was a coronal mass ejection. We did report on it, but you can see the object is clear as a bell. Now let's move to the next photograph. Now here was the smaller object that I pointed out. Once again, you can see it seems to be surrounded by some type of a gas. The object is perfectly spherical. Perfectly spherical. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not any of our other known planets. It's not Venus, it's not Jupiter, Saturn, Mars. It's not any of those planets, because they show up on this imaging labeled with their name. It was just by the grace of God. I noticed this in 2 frames real quick, and when I slowed it down once again, I was able to capture it. And there it is, right there. Now, I'm going to have all of these photographs enhanced so we can get better looks at them. And whenever I do get them back, I will put them in a video and you guys can all see them. Now, this is a close-up with the magnifying ring around it. Once again, you can see it's a clearly spherical object. It seems to have some type of a gas cloud around it, and it's not emitting light. Now this one seems to reflect light from the sun, so there's a high possibility this may be just a planet associated with one of these brown dwarf stars. Now here's where things get very interesting. This is another camera, another view from H1, and this is coming from the SETI website. Here you have the Earth. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, you see how bright the Earth is. You can see the Birkeland current line, the line I mentioned in the other images. You have Saturn out here too, but Saturn is kind of vague in the image. You can see this massive dust cloud of debris, because usually the space is relatively clear. Whenever I was viewing this, I happened to notice this right there, similar to the same image that we were just looking at in previous photographs. Right there. Identical size, identical positioning, exactly where it should be on the same day and at the same time. Let's take a look. It's going to be hard for you to possibly make this out, but once again, I have not done anything to these photographs. No color, no contrast, no nothing, just putting an arrow there for you to see it. Follow my cursor. It's perfectly round. Perfectly round, and it has other objects around it. Now, these may be stars in the background. Usually when they're white like this, it doesn't signify that these are stars. But there's more. There's much more. So I want you to see this object very, very clearly. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, these objects are very far out there. They're not right up against the camera. Now, once again, the magnifying ring has been applied. You see Saturn. It's right there where my cursor is. The arrow pointing directly to this object. I'll bring it in a little closer for you. You can see it now. You can see it very, very clearly. Something that was kind of startling when looking at this image, even though it's a little bit blurry because of the zooming in, but it has not pixelated. Look at all of these objects. All of these spherical objects. They're not bright white like the other stars that you see in the background. There is a lot of objects here, 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 right there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the brown dwarf star. This is at least one of them. It's not reflecting light. It's not emitting light. And it's staring you right in your face. Let's move on to the next image, because there's a lot of them. Once again, same technique, magnifying bubble, one more frame advanced into the future. There you go. You can clearly see it. It's not Jupiter, because Jupiter's not in the image at all. You can see all of these other objects. What they are exactly, I couldn't tell you, but they're there. This is black and white. A little bit harder. I just wanted to see if turning this image into black and white would allow me to see things a little, a little more clearly. The only thing I could see more clearly were some of these other objects surrounding this planet, or this brown dwarf, whatever it may be. They're here, they're here. You can see a small cluster here, here. And this, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, this could be a planet. It's going to be a moon, but it's reflecting white. So I'm not saying it's emitting light, but it is reflecting light from the sun. This object here, this object here. Or this could be a passing star, or it could be passing behind a star. It's very, very hard to say. The depth perception with some of these cameras is very, very hard to judge. But there's no doubt that is a large spherical planetary object, substellar object. There's no doubt in my mind. Once again, one more frame advanced. Magnification bubble, there it is. There is an object right here, right there. There's another object here that's very hard to see, but you can see it. It's the largest object in the photograph. You can see other objects. I didn't want to just cloud everything up with all of these arrows, but there's an object here, here, here. Multiple objects. Multiple. They're everywhere. And ladies and gentlemen, these are not stars. These are not stars. I'm sorry. I don't care what anyone says. Those are not stars. I feel that these are objects that have been drug in by these brown dwarf stars. If you have a better explanation, well, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear it. Let's move on to the next frame. Once again, the next frame, and things have changed like they have been each frame we go through, because space is in constant motion. Let's take a look a little closer. We have a large object right here. Seems to be reflecting a little bit of light, but it's very dark. Seems to reflect some light right here, but the rest of it is very dark. This arrow pointing to the large object right here. And as you can see, all of these other objects, all of these, they're everywhere. Here, here, here. This can possibly be a reflection, but I'm not sure. But there's no doubt. You can see, clear as a bell. We're going to move to the next frame. Once again, now, this is Jupiter. As I advanced the video, Jupiter comes in to the scene, and this is Jupiter right there. And this is its Birkeland current line. And I want you to take very close note. There's a big, big, round, spherical object right there. This is Jupiter, right here. Not this big massive object. And what do you see around it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, you see all of these spherical objects. Are those the moons of Jupiter? I doubt it, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the size of them. Here, I'll zoom it in a little bit. Look at the size of these objects. These are not the moons of Jupiter. I'm sorry, but they're just not. Let's move on to the next frame. Once again, this is Jupiter right here. This little round white sphere with the Birkeland current line running right between the, right in the middle of the planet Jupiter. Let me back this off a little bit. You have a big spherical object here. You have another one here. You have a very large one here, but it's not emitting light. It's not even reflecting light. Right there. And then you see multiple other objects here, here, here. They're everywhere. And ladies and gentlemen, these are not stars. Look over here. You could see the stars. They're white. This is probably a star in the very, very distance, very far. But these objects here, they're not far. They're not far like these suns. You can clearly see the shape of this object. How would this happen if it was not a substellar or planetary object? Camera anomaly? No. Lens flare? Come on. Next frame, same thing. You're seeing an object here, another one here. The large sphere. Right here. Here's Jupiter. But the rest of this is not Jupiter. These are not Jupiter's moons. They're not Jupiter's moons. Here's another one here. Here's another one right here. Here's another one right here. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, I've been looking at these images for so many years. Okay, it's just like human nature for me to pick these objects out. Once again, another frame. You can see the other object here. You can see the round circular sphere. And this is off in the distance. This would kind of be, oh, I would say between Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn would be off in this direction, over here. This object is clearly there. Let's move on to the next picture. Now, this is just a little further away than Saturn. And once again, objects here, here, 1, 2, 3. I mean, there's so many I can't count. And ladies and gentlemen, these are not stars. These are not stars. You know, normally, NASA doesn't give us this type of evidence to look at, unless they thought because that big dust cloud was moving through the images that we would not see this, or they hoped. But the fact of the matter is, they're there. I spotted them, and I've been working on these images now for 4.5 hours, going through them and trying to find the detail. There's one right here. There's another one right here. There's another one right here. Now they may, like I said, they may be hard to see with the untrained eye. This S stands for Saturn. But they're everywhere, all over the place, just like the doctor said. Now, once again, moving into that other photograph, this is the next frame. There is our large spherical object. There's no doubt in my mind that this has to be a brown dwarf star. Let's zoom in on it. I mean, come on. Let's be real with each other here. You can clearly see it. It's not Jupiter. It's not Venus. It's not the Earth. And you can see everything around it. All of these, I don't care if they're moons, planets, exoplanets, they are everywhere around this object. Again, just like the doctor said, there are so many of these objects in our inner solar system, but nobody would believe it. Nobody would believe it, but the evidence is staring you right in the face. It's a black and white photograph. I converted over. It's a little bit harder to see, but you can clearly see the perfectly round edges, perfectly spherical. And then you could start to see all of the other objects. They are everywhere. And again, ladies and gentlemen, as I have stated before, you know, these objects spend hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, tens of millions of years traveling through space. They're going to pick up little partners, okay? And this is just a fact. If you ask any astronomer, astrophysicist, yes, these brown dwarf stars, they will pick up travelers. They will attract smaller planets, exoplanets, even other brown dwarf stars. We've seen that just last week. The two stars, the two brown dwarf stars doing the waltz, as NASA called it, orbiting around each other, round and round and round and round. Once again, you can see the object clear as a bell. And this is not debris, ladies and gentlemen. This is not debris. All of these other little spherical objects, this is not debris. All of these objects that you're seeing here, these are all little partners of this big brown dwarf star. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, judging from where this is located, Earth is way over here. Saturn is right back here. The sun way off to the left. This object right between them. Right between Jupiter and Saturn. That would be my judgment. Let's move to the next photograph. Same thing. This is Jupiter. This little ball of light. But yet behind it, off in the distance, we see what? A massively round spherical object with numerous objects all around it. The possibilities of those being Jupiter's moons? You know, there may be a possibility. I'm not buying it. They're too big. Some of them are almost the same size as Jupiter, and this would be Jupiter right here. Incredible find, once again, and this is coming from the other SREM image. And this imaging is always like this, ladies and gentlemen. This is not pixelization here. This is how this image appears. You would not see a perfectly round object in this type of imaging if it was not there. Once again, a black and white, but you can see it. It's right there. A lot of activity. You can see gas, this gaseous cloud or dust cloud all the way around, everywhere. Amazing photographs. I'm glad I was able to capture all of this. And I'm going to be forwarding all of these images to the doctor. And she's going to write a report on all of this. And it will be a much more detailed report than what I'm going over with you this morning. But I've been working for the last 4 hours on these images. And as soon as I get information in, I want to get it out there to you. I want to share it with you because that's what this is all about. This is Scott from Planet X News and the Nibiru channel. Thank you for watching.